my name is Catherine Riles. I am an artist living up in the mountains of North Carolina, and I'm going to be showing you a video today walking through filling up my new handmade wooden watercolor palette, and I made this myself. I actually have made a couple or a few, and I'm thinking about making even more. So I'd love if you leave a comment. Is this the kind of thing that you're interested in? And what are your thoughts on using a wooden palette? Also, feel free to like and subscribe to my brand new YouTube station. No, it's not a station, is it? I don't even know. I'm so new. But I have more stuff I want to share. I'm doing an online sketchbook course, and so I'm also adding videos that kind of go along with that sketchbook. With the classes that I'm teaching there is just kind of extras, and especially based on some of the questions that I get through the class that I'm like, this would be great information to share, not just for my students, but for anybody that's interested. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoy the videos to come. So like and subscribe, and I will see you soon. I am nervous and completely excited about adding paint to my new handmade wooden watercolor well palette. This is in cherry wood. I made this myself, and my dad actually helped me kind of come up with the whole jig and making this happen. But I am super duper excited because I've been wanting to do this for quite some time, because I love working with beautiful things and handmade things, and I have a beautiful ceramic palette for mixing, but I'd love to have something that complements it and can sit beside my palette. I'll show you. A friend of mine in Oregon makes just the most darling little ceramics, and this is my palette. I keep it in wool sleeve that I made. I think this is going to look so nice just side by side, and I can mix here and I can store my paint there. And I have a sheath that I'm making for this. I don't have it right now, but I'll be able to share that to you very soon. But for now, I'm going to nervously add my paint. I've thought about which ones I'm going to add. The nice thing about this palette is it's got plenty of wells. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So if like 15 is the magic number, or even 12, it kind of gives you at least 1 or 2 extra fun slots. I have this little divot here that's kind of like a little thumb slot, depending on if you want to hold it and pick up paint. And then this here is one of my favorite little designs. I don't have a paintbrush at hand, but it can hold your paintbrush, and so it won't roll off of your working space, and kind of keep everything nice and tidy while you work, which is one of my favorite features. So let's do this. I'm going to start with my yellows up here: Hansa Yellow Medium, Chronochrome Gold, Yellow Ochre, and then I'm going into my reds, Pyrrole Scarlet, and Chronochrome Magenta. Those are my first 2 primaries that I use, and that's going to be my top rows. So here we go. A little bit nervous. I have filled paint before. I have put 4 coats of tung oil on this. I've let it cure for a few days. So tung oil can have a strong scent initially, but it does wear off and dissipates. But the nice thing about tung oil over some of the other varnishes is that it's really nice and impenetrable, less impenetrable to water. No, how do you say this? It's going to resist water better than some of the other options. So it should hold up and last. Oh my goodness. Okay, there's the first one. And do I want to mix it? What do I want to do? I've got a little needle here. I'm going to give it a nice little stir. And she's going to be ready to dry. Okay, I might have filled it a little bit more than I think I was planning to, but you know, that's a lot of paint that fits in these wells. The outside diameter, the largest width of this is 5/8 inch, I'm pretty sure, and it's got a good depth to it. It's almost the depth of this, which doesn't look like much, but when you compare it to other pans, it is not bad. So here we go with quinacridone gold. This is, whoa, okay, that's not what I wanted. I didn't want it to fly out, but it's okay. This one just kind of blends in to the color of this cherry wood. You are just not acting. So even if I squeeze on the side, there we go. So a trick, if you squeeze on the sides, you can usually get that paint to go back in. But when it was exploding like that, there was only one thing to do. Spray my hands. So I try to keep myself clean as I'm working. And then we will stir this up, get her to lay down. I could probably even do it didn't work as well as I thought it would. I just don't want it to be above the top. It can dome, so that one has domed. Do you see? No, you can tell. So I just want this to kind of lay a little bit flatter. And I also know as these dry, they shrink. So some of the water moisture content will evaporate as it dries, and then it'll kind of shrink and settle. So once they're dry, they'll be in great shape. So I've got paint on there. Look at how it just wiped up. That's exciting. You probably can't tell, but it looks like this thing is going to be nice and clean and not stain too horribly. We will learn about staining once we put our phthalos in. I'm only doing phthalo green. Okay, anyway, let's stop jumping ahead. Next up is yellow ochre. Here we go. And that one's going to need to be mixed in because it looks like some of it has separated. So I'm going to mix this paint up and try to incorporate it a little bit better. The nice thing about this palette is that when its lifetime has come to an end, it can just go out and be composted. Like, I did think about the fact of maybe using like a polyurethane or something like that would be more durable, but then it kind of makes it less natural. And I like the idea of this having, you know, natural elements that just kind of go back to the earth and seamlessly. So next up is our Pyrrole Scarlet. There she is. And I like, so I really tested out sizes for the wells. I like smaller ones, but I also, this is large enough for some of the larger brushes that I use. It's not really, I do have a 1-inch option I'm gonna create to just for maybe some of the wider like flat brushes or something like that. This is Chronograph Magenta by Holbein. Most of my colors are Daniel Smith, but there are a few Holbein colors that I prefer. And I like their Quinacridone Magenta more than the Daniel Smith currently. I can always change my mind. That's the thing. I am like, the only thing that is slightly, you know, nerve-wracking about this is because I actually do like to change up my paints a lot. But the ones that I'm putting in here are the ones that I just know if I sit down with this palette, I'm going to be able to do everything I like to do. Okay, the next row, I'm going to start with my greens. And I think I was doing without sap green for a while, but we have to come back together. We're just meant to be. It's a great convenience color. And I know I can mix it with some of the other, I'm going to have Phthalo Green and I have the Chronograph Gold on my palette, but I just prefer this ready mix, and then this one I can kind of shift with other colors pretty quickly too, because most of the time I never use anything straight out of the pan. Okay, so that was my first green. My second green is going to be Phthalo Green, and I'm doing Phthalo Green. It's going to help me get to some really pretty turquoises and even some purples with my magenta. So it's a really great color to have. It's very staining. It's very, very strong. But between Phthalo Green and Phthalo Blue, I only wanted to have one phthalo in this palette, and I chose the Phthalo Green because I find that I use that way more, like I said, for like purples and teals, and then I'm going with Cerulean Green, which is a really nice, deep, dark green, and it also, with its pigment color, is actually a black color, so it has a lot of like kind of uses in terms of making some really deep dark values. So it's good to have things that can go lighter and things that can also help you get those deeper, darker values. Because once something is light, it's hard to take it back down. So I am going to put cobalt teal in this palette just because of the colors that are in here. I think that it's going to give me that bit of variety, and it's also going to have a really, really strong granulation characteristic. So if I mix it with anything, that will automatically granulate and separate, and I can kind of create some custom sort of duochrome sorts of colors with it. I'm just going to try to get that to lay back down. I might just have to wait till it dries a little bit. Next up, we're going with the Cerulean Blue Chromium. I use this way more than I use the Phthalo Blue, so I'd prefer to have this over that. This is also going to be one I need to mix in here. Sorry, the sun went behind a cloud. I'm going to mix this up. Some of the binders can separate, especially our temperatures my house has been getting quite cold recently. And then I'm going with the classic ultramarine blue. I will go back and forth between the French ultramarine and the regular. They're fairly similar. They're definitely similar in hue. I think it's more like particle size that makes them different. This is so exciting. Okay, so I haven't messed up yet. I am going to do burnt sienna, Indian red. I like Indian red because it's very opaque, but if you wash it out, it can have a lot of similarities to something like Potter's Pink, but Potter's Pink only does practically like Potter's Pink. This has a lot more variety to it. Burnt sienna, I was thinking about taking out, but because I was going to do burnt umber and then indigo, but I might stick with my brown iron oxide for now, which is also really granulating and it makes great mixes. And with the indigo, I think this is going to be my last line. And then buff titanium is just, it's nice to have. It's not necessary to have, but I really like to have it. I think if it's in my palette, I will use it and I won't regret giving up the spot for something else. Hey, you look a little bit chunky today. And I could have always just put less paint in here, and then if I changed my mind, I could just use it up quickly and then switch it out, but I'm pretty sure. I've been using these colors for quite a long time, so I feel pretty confident with my choices here. Burnt Sienna is next. I just don't like to be without it. I do think that I want to try some different burnt siennas, and maybe get something that's just a little bit warmer than this Daniel Smith version. But this one's still working for me, and I still have some. So that's what we're going to use. And then the Indian Red. It's a color in some of my limited palettes that I had taken out, and I found that I kept wanting to reach for it. So I would reach for another palette because it had this color in it. And so I'm like, if you're missing it, that tells you something. One of the only other colors that I'm worried I might miss is the rich green gold. But I know I can do without it. I know it's just like a lovely, fun convenience color to have. So we shall see how I fare without it. And then this is going to be my, it's environmentally friendly version of the brown iron oxide. So it's what was left over in some of the mines, I think. And they were able to make paint from it. It's a lovely warmer brown. I like the warmer browns over the cooler ones like raw umber. I prefer like a burnt umber. And then this one's just really fun because it granulates a lot. And then I'm doing indigo instead of like a Payne's gray. Another option that I like in this spot is Lunar Violet, not Lunar Black. I like that the Lunar Violet is still kind of like a dark, deep black color, but with like a little hint of purples and violets. But I'm going to go with indigo because I just really like it. I always like to have it around. And it's standing up pretty tall over here. Oh, look at that. And once these dry, it'll be really nice. Also, this wood was scrap wood. So I love that, something that was too small to make, any sort of functional, trim work in a house or something. It came from a neighbor's old workshop, and I'm just really, really thrilled to be able to continue to give this tree some life in this beautiful, beautiful palette. And so this is what it looks like when it is empty, and this is what it looks like when it's full. And I'm going to show you really quickly what it looks like with a paintbrush. Don't stick your fingers in the wet paint. There she is. I'm so excited.